What is up, guys? It is Flash back with some more charts and another video. It's Wednesday, July 23, about 7:05 a.m. Eastern. Doing a morning video for you guys today, and we're going to dive into Bitcoin, MSTR, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. If you guys want to join the daily membership, I drop a daily video every morning around 8 or 9 a.m. Eastern for the members, and we go through all the stuff that I'm looking at on a daily basis to try to, keep me sane, keep me in the loop of what's going on, and I just continue tracking for this for you guys every single day. So feel free to join on YouTube. Just hit the join button underneath the video. So here's Bitcoin on the daily. We're sitting at 118.2. Again, power law, rainbow wave indicator in the background. This core green line is the power law, the power trend. So again, still tracking, still going forward. And when we think about, again, what I've talked about before, and this is thanks to Raoul Pal and Julian Battelle at Real Vision, Bitcoin seems to be tracking the business cycle, which is here represented by the ISM, the manufacturing index. And so once this gets above 50, that's when Bitcoin likes to have its big risk-on moves, right? And that's generally when alt season will also begin. They dive into it a lot more detail than I can right now, but this chart is just something that I think is really worth following over time. And especially when they have their forward-looking indicators, they look at the dollar, they look at liquidity, and they are able to project out, where the ISM is headed. And in this case, it has a 9-month lead. So pretty good forward-looking indicator, which I think can be helpful for us to navigate this complex, market environment. Right, so when we overlay M2, again, pretty much copying what Real Vision is doing, but I think it's super interesting and fun to follow along. A 91-day offset with the global M2. The highest 30, 60, 90 average is 91 days, and that's represented with 85%. So again, this is still tracking. I do think we're going to make our way to the upper right-hand corner of this rainbow wave, right? And so I think it goes back to this chart too. Like if the ISM, cracks 50 and goes into Q1, Q2 of 2026, I think we could see Bitcoin coming up here, outside of this red zone. I think it could even surpass that. So, the power trend, the power law is all well and good. I do think the business cycle and liquidity also plays a factor. So we'll just keep tracking. When we overlay M2, we have a 91-day offset. This is an 86% correlation on that 30, 60, 90 average. Again, looks really, really good. When we overlay both of them, it's up and to the right, guys. Just generally speaking, I think M2 kind of shows us the way as well as gold. And, M2 kind of took its own path here. Gold took its own path here. And then Bitcoin is also taking its own path, kind of, what I'm saying, to the upper right-hand part of this wave. And then last but not least, the pink line is MSTR. Now, do I really think that this is not going to be correlated moving forward? No, I think the pink line is going to go up too. And so when we think about MSTR, the scale for the price of MSTR is over here on the left. Current price today of 426.40. I think if Bitcoin goes up here, follows M2, follows gold, MSTR is going to follow suit. Whether it's going to be as leveraged or not, I'm not 100% sure yet. We're still kind of figuring that out, right? So when we look at the command center, this is something I'm tracking on a daily basis, right? And so I've got a couple different indicators going here, but we have our overlays here, gold and M2, and then we have the distance percentage from the 30-day moving average here with Bitcoin, which is a representation of energy and momentum, similar to its current rate of change here in the white. And then I have the ADX. And then a couple indicators are pushed forward. So this is the rate of change of M2. This is the rate of change of gold, right? So these are pushed forward by about 90 days, just like the overlays. And so the idea is, can we detect potentially the rate of change, the future price movements of Bitcoin using the rate of change of M2 and gold? And so they tend to build up in these patterns, consolidations, energy, and when they release to the upside or downside, that could potentially, the idea is to say Bitcoin will follow suit and will try to match up Bitcoin's rate of change or Bitcoin's kind of energy indicator to detect when those price movements will occur. So, all that to be said, it looks like, these ROCs, these rate of changes remain positive throughout the summer, and they're even coiled and maybe breaking out too. So that's even further evidence for me to say, hey, this is probably going to extend into 2026. Let's keep tracking, right? So, and then when we zoom out, when we think about Bitcoin in general, I think this is the best mindset to have. Like this is bigger than all this stuff. It's hard, sound money getting adopted and growing stronger every single day, every single week. And that's represented in this power trend, power law, in the regular scale rather than logarithmic scale, right? So this is just acquire Bitcoin, acquire hard money, and go touch grass. And so here's Julius at JV_finance. He was able to put some standard deviation bands around M2. This is Bitcoin. So this is to say, hey, there's a lot of room to the upside here. We're in the -2 standard deviation. M2 is increasing. I think we'll find our way, making our way up through here into September, October. That goes right hand in hand with what I'm looking at with the M2 overlay and the gold overlay. All right, so let's get into MSTR. Now, MSTR is about to post earnings, right? I think it's July 31. I think it's around a $10 billion gain, right? One of the biggest earnings in history for any company. I think that's a pretty big deal. And, the financial analysts aren't necessarily predicting that, the TradFi ones. And, you have it looks like a technical breakout of a nice little base here. Breakout back test, 426, kind of a violent back test, right? Not exactly fun to sit through. But you have to think to yourself, like, the sentiment is so bearish right now, but we just had a very good technical breakout and back test, and we have earnings on the horizon. So I'm sticking with it, guys. I know it's kind of been underperforming our expectations, but I'm going to stick with it and see how this plays out. When we zoom out, these blue arcs that I've posted, these are just speculation, but it's fun to think about. Price is still kind of matching up here. You can match up the bottoms here, and this could round out. We'll see. I think it's exciting to kind of think this through. And then a couple other big picture charts. I have this big exponential, this big parabola that we could be in, may or may not. I've always had these orange bands here, and then we got our price targets here for 150K Bitcoin, 200K Bitcoin, 250K Bitcoin. Will these play out? I'm not sure, but I do think we're at least going to get to four figures, if Bitcoin goes up here. And then another look and feel is I have the same parabola on here, but just these channels, right? You have kind of what it looks like to be a massive shoulder, head, shoulder, big cup and handle with a measured move breakout. If we just double this channel, it can take us up here to 2,900 or so, right? So this is kind of my anticipated path if Bitcoin does continue to run. I think MSTR will come up here, and then we'll form that new base, that new bear market. I think we'll come down to our current price levels, honestly, and that goes hand in hand with the rainbow wave, with the power law, and that chart that I always start with. And then here's another look at MSTR measured in crude oil futures. I mean, this is just a little bit more clear. Like, we have a very clear horizontal breakout line. We're in this well-defined channel, and we're right there, ready for a big breakout. So I think this is just a different way of looking at MSTR rather than measured in the US dollar, measured in crude oil futures. But I would say this is like my biggest concern is MSTR measured in Bitcoin. I do think this is a big Wyckoff accumulation where, over time, over the coming years, we'll eventually make our way up and to the right. But for right now, it kind of looks like, it's struggling. It's could potentially be breaking down, right? So I think this is something we want to keep our eye on. This is something I track on a daily basis with the member videos. And if we zoom in, or if we look at it maybe a little bit differently, this is MSTR measured in IBIT. So essentially the same thing, right? It's just the IBIT and MSTR trade at the same time. This could be, some sort of accumulation pattern, accumulation cylinder. I'm not really sure. This is just another fun way to look at it, but it definitely does kind of line up a little bit. So I think that we're going to be open to multiple possibilities here, but this could also be, a bear flag, so I should probably chart that as well, give everyone the bearish scenario. And then last but not least here, this is kind of a look into what the members get on a daily basis. Like, we're trying to find these tickers that are breaking out, but Metaplanet right now is not breaking out, and why is that? Well, we had an energy breakdown, right? It had a great run, and the ADX looks like the bears are in control. This is going sideways slash to the downside, right? So we want to wait for these indicators to look a little bit more bullish, right? To build up that energy and have that bullish posture. And so for right now, Metaplanet doesn't have that look and feel, but there are a lot of other tickers that are Bitcoin treasuries or just regular stocks in the space that are looking really good. So those are the ones that I'm looking at, like Coinbase, for example. Some other quantum stocks. So I dive into those on a daily basis and try to get that out to the members as well. But if you guys found this helpful, again, I'm sticking with MSTR here. I think there's higher prices in our future. It's just kind of taking its time. Drop me a like if you found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.